If you watch YouTube to learn English, I've discovered that there's a dark side to the platform that's stopping you from speaking fluently and with confidence. I taught English in real life before getting a different job in industry by day and moving me teaching efforts to YouTube by night. More about that later. But after over 5 years on the platform, I think I can finally see what's going on. And once you see it, everything becomes clear. I've identified 4 areas where YouTube is holding you back. I'm going to call them my 4 red herrings. Now, a red herring is a piece of information that is misleading or distracting from the real thing that you should be focusing your efforts on. The root of the problem is obvious. And once you see it, it'll change your relationship with YouTube. You will improve your English. And who knows, you might even change your life. But first, red herring number 1, sound like a native. Now, this is a really popular concept on YouTube. There's lots of videos telling you how you can sound like a native, speak more like a native, use idioms to sound like a native. And this is really attractive to viewers. I've even got some of these videos myself, how to sound like a native. But is it a useful concept? I think we can agree that it's attractive to viewers, so that's why it gets views. And as YouTubers and creators, we have a problem and a destination, and we need to take you from the problem to the destination. And the destination of sound like a native is one that's really attractive to people who are learning English and trying to improve. The question I want to pose is this concept of sound like a native something helpful that we should be striving for, or is it a distraction? Is it a red herring? Now, I did a little bit of digging. I watched a few videos on the subject, and what I like to do is read the comments. Now, I found some very pertinent comments to this point. I want to just read you a few and see what you think. I learned that our accent is part of our identity. We must be proud of our origin, culture, and the background that makes us unique. So that's an argument for not trying to sound like a native speaker, for embracing your accent of wherever you're from and the influence that that accent has when you try and speak English. And there were plenty of people in the comments section of this particular video that agreed. For example, I agree the most important is to have good pronunciation. Okay. The accent is way harder to change, and there's no real benefit of doing that because we can communicate still and be understood still without having a native accent. So this commenter introduces or differentiates between pronunciation and accent, which I think it is important to do. And I tend to agree with this comment. There is a difference between pronunciation and accent, but it's not that clear cut really when you dig a little bit deeper and think about it, because what is pronunciation? Pronunciation is the sounds that we make and how we put all of those sounds together, and what happens when we put the sounds together. Do we have changes or additional sounds that come in? Some sounds are eliminated. We stress or emphasize some part of the word or phrase, and all of these ingredients go in to make up the pronunciation, which can be technically correct or incorrect. In English, you can have good pronunciation or bad pronunciation. There's certain rules that you've just got to follow. It's not a case of, oh, that's my identity. It's just incorrect. But then you have the concept of accent with that, and there's definitely a bit of an overlap, because what's accent? Well, it's the sounds that we make when we produce the words, how those sounds are put together, and the characteristics of pronunciation that are adopted by groups, either in a particular area, could be a country, or even a socioeconomic class that distinguishes that group from another. So it's possible for two different people with different accents to have different pronunciations, and for both of those pronunciations to be correct. And at the same time, it's possible for somebody to pronounce a word in an incorrect way. And that might be influenced by the foreign accent. So that's where it gets complicated. There's definitely an overlap between pronunciation and accent to consider. One more comment just supporting that idea that you shouldn't try and sound like a native speaker, which amused me. It said, you only need to lose an accent and gain another one if you want to be an international spy, which I thought was pretty good. And you can imagine a situation where somebody during wartime or espionage, spying, that your life might depend on sounding like somebody else. So in that situation, okay, you're going to want to reduce your foreign accent as much as possible to sound like a native. Agreed. But there were plenty of comments on the opposite side of the argument, just questioning that whole concept of, oh, it's my identity and my accent makes me who I am. Listen to these. It's not valid when you're more likely to suffer discrimination. Now, it's an interesting point, but I'm not sure I agree. If you want to feel like you belong to a particular group or improve your pronunciation or your accent to enhance your communication, then that's a good thing. But I don't think you're ever going to avoid being discriminated against, because the type of person that would actually abuse somebody or discriminate against somebody because either they're a foreigner or they sound different isn't going to be persuaded by a little bit of an improvement in your pronunciation or a softening of your accent. Or if you come out with some new native idioms, they're going to go on abusing you because you're still not going to sound like a native. But if you take the definition of discrimination slightly differently and see it as, hey, if I don't improve my pronunciation or my communication skills to a level where I'm easily understood and can communicate my message with confidence and authority, then I'll rightly be discriminated against or selected against in favour of somebody else who has improved those skills or does have superior communication. So, not sure of the use of the word discrimination, but it's an interesting point. Another one against, why should I be proud of something, as in accent, that I usually have zero influence on? Disagree. You can influence your accent. You can like or even love your culture, but be proud of it? No, that's nationalist BS. Plus, culture definitely doesn't make you unique, for countless people share the same cultural background. Everyone's an individual, of course, but we shouldn't overestimate how special we are. I think for me, rather than being proud in a nationalistic sense, when I speak a different language, and I'll probably easily be identified as a native English speaker because of the influence that my English has on French or Spanish when I speak those languages, I think it's the significance of the fact that I've had to learn another language, which gives me something to be proud of. So not, oh, he sounds English and I'm proud to be English. More, oh, he's made the effort to learn our language and even try and maybe sound a little bit like us when he speaks and adapt his accent. I found one comment that sums up nicely the argument that you shouldn't try and sound like a native speaker. It says, "You're right. Nevertheless, we are still pursuing the dream of sounding like a native. And I think that's fine. For me, do try and sound like a native speaker. Immerse yourself in the culture, in that process, with humility, dedication to the art of language learning. I'm not going to start devaluing myself, though, if I don't achieve it or feel like I'm a failure if I don't sound like a native. I'm going to set out with the clear objective in mind that I'm never actually going to sound like a native speaker, but I'm going to better myself in striving to achieve just that. Final point on native speakers: don't put native speakers on a pedestal up here. They're not generally interested in your level of English, so don't apologize for your accent, don't apologize for your level. Just concentrate on improving your communication and getting your message across in the best way you can with the tools that you have available. Concentrate on the message, not on language. That's just your tool for communication. And that's what native speakers are interested in. You'll never sound like me, and I'll never sound like you in your language. Red herring number 2, don't say. These videos that appear on your YouTube and they say, don't say please, don't say thank you, don't say hello, don't say goodbye, don't say yes, don't say no. Ridiculous concept. I've talked about these type of videos before, and for me it's just clear clickbait, and it's entertainment content, not learning content. Of course, there's value in having a wide and varied vocabulary and not being constrained by only having a couple of words that you can use. But to suggest that you shouldn't say what they present as basic words, please, thank you, yes, no, hello, goodbye, how are you? It's absurd, because these words are used all the time by native speakers. They're popular and they're well known because that's the normal language that we use every day. Are these types of videos the best way to expand your vocabulary and learn new words? It's probably not. You know, you should be reading, getting all of that comprehensible input, and that's the best way to absorb new useful vocabulary in context. And you should actively incorporate any new vocabulary that you discover during your reading and listening into your production practice, into your speaking practice. And I've put my thoughts on the best way to practice your speaking skills, even if you're practicing on your own, all together in an ebook, and it's free. I'll put the link in the description. It's called Solo Speaking Success, and I think you'll enjoy it. Red herring number 3, non-native English teachers on YouTube. There are 2 aspects to this that I think are worth looking at. First, there are a lot of channels on YouTube attacking non-native speakers, and it's easy to do because lots of the videos and the lessons are absolutely shocking. So there's whole channels dedicated to identifying and criticizing these non-native, not always non-native, but usually non-native English teachers. Now, these takedown videos are just designed to wind people up and provoke a reaction. I think it's particularly sad when there's like failed English teachers who are clearly very proficient and know all of the grammar, and they've got 37 subscribers, and you could just feel the jealousy and bitterness oozing out of their videos when they're attacking like these big YouTubers with 1 million subscribers who might make some small pronunciation errors or get an idiom incorrect. But think about why you watch those videos. Are you genuinely learning something, or are you just being entertained? I watch that shit and I don't even need to learn English. Sometimes I think, okay, that's a useful mistake. Lots of people would make that and we could learn from it. But most of the time, it's just pure entertainment. And I think I'll do some research for my next video, and before I know it, I'm down the rabbit hole watching some poor teacher making a load of mistakes. So it raises the second aspect. Can non-native teachers teach, or should non-native teachers teach? And of course they should, and of course they can. Maybe even better than native speaking teachers. A lot of the time, the ideal teacher for you might not be the ideal teacher for somebody else. And sometimes a non-native teacher, a non-native speaker, somebody who's had to learn the language and go through a lot of the similar challenges that you'll be facing, is the best person to get you to the next stage. Sometimes, depending on their level, they'll reach a limit where they're not useful to you anymore, and you do need to look for a teacher who's more advanced, or maybe even a native speaking teacher. But I've met loads of great teachers who are non-native English speakers, and they do a great job for their students. So should these people who are making mistakes in the lessons be teaching English? Well, yeah, I think everybody should be teaching English on YouTube. Everybody who wants to improve their own English. Because the best way to learn something, or the best way to consolidate your learning something, you're learning on a topic, is to try and teach it to other people. I think there's massive benefits for all of your skills, whether it's explaining a grammatical concept or showing a daily speaking habit and how you're gradually improving your speaking skills over time, documenting that and putting it on the platform for others to learn from. What could be better? That's what YouTube's for. I think the problem comes with how it's presented. I think if it's presented with attention to detail, where you've taken care to the best of your ability not to make any mistakes, with transparency, maybe, saying, look, this is something I'm learning myself. This is what I've learned so far. This is what I think it's all about. And the main thing is with an attitude of humility, not presenting yourself as, this is fact, I'm the best teacher online, like, subscribe, like. Red herring number 4, comprehensible input. Now, comprehensible input videos are massive at the moment. There might be an hour or 2 hours of somebody walking around with the camera describing their breakfast and what they can see around them. The idea, the theory, is that you're absorbing all this real life information, and in the context of the story or the video that you can see, you're filling in the gaps with this new vocabulary that you haven't heard before, and then that gets acquired into your bank of information, and all of the structures kind of grammar sort of sort themselves out in your head without having to sit down and study them. There's a whole theory behind it, and yeah, I'm sure it works. But the reality is, shit videos of people describing the breakfast isn't necessarily comprehensible input for you. You probably already know all the words, and when you're watching it, again, ask yourself, am I being entertained or am I learning English? Is this the best use of my English learning time? Some are great, fantastic storytelling, connections with their audience, personality, but is it entertainment? Could you watch something that's not a comprehensible input video and actually get more comprehensible input that might be even better for your level and your ability? You'd be entertained, maybe even informed about something else that isn't somebody's breakfast, and learn some English at the same time. When you're on YouTube, just don't forget what the platform is designed for. It's not there to help you learn English. It can be a valuable tool, but YouTube's just there to keep you watching as long as possible, in whatever way it can. You have to be intentional, or you can get very easily distracted. I almost forgot. Well, I actually did forget, because I'm editing the video now that I recorded yesterday in the car park, and I've just realised that I teased a little life update when I talked about my job right at the beginning, and I never came back to it. It might be because yesterday was my birthday, so I was itching to get home to the birthday cake, but I thought I'd come back and address it now, because believe it or not, yesterday, 38 years old. And when we have these occasions like milestones in life, it's often a good opportunity to reevaluate and reassess what you're doing. And I've got a lot going on at the moment. The job that I mentioned in industry that I left teaching English to do, well, I just quit that to take on a new role of full-time daddy-o, and sort of house husband. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm hoping it's going to give me a little bit more time. I might be completely wrong in this assessment, but I'm hoping that it might give me a little bit more time to dedicate to the channel. And with that sort of not relaunching, but rebranding, let's say, you might have noticed I got a new logo, new channel name, my name, and a new banner. And that reflects, I think, a new focus. I've sort of realized that I can't teach everybody everything about English, so I'm going to try and focus in a little bit on where I think I can help. And that's if you've got enough English, enough grammar and vocabulary where you think sort of done enough learning and I want to sort of now put it in use. So if you think you've probably got enough grammar and vocabulary to get you by, then we're going to polish it up and convert it into real fluency and speaking with confidence. Don't forget to download the ebook, and we'll see you next time.